Okay, so the next part of this movement, we've looked at the movement in standing for the pelvic clock between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, anterior, posterior tilt. Now we're going to look at the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock positions. You need to be really honest here. I'm trying to get you to be really honest in the anterior and posterior, but this one's it's even harder to feel. So this is going to be a hike and a drop of your hips. So when we were laid on the floor, remember that as you press down into the left side, which would have been 3 o'clock, the left side of the waist shortened. And then we went to the other side. This is going to be the same movement in standing. But before we start, let's just check in. So checking in away from the wall to start off with. We'll do a quick check-in, then we'll come to the wall. So away from the wall, just notice how the weight's falling through your feet. So have you got more weight in one foot than the other? Is the weight in your heels or in your toes? Remember that the weight might be in one heel and the opposite toes. What's happening in your knees? Is one knee bent? Is one knee straight? Are they both soft? Are they both hyperextended? So no need to change anything, we're just learning. What can you feel in your pelvis? Does one side of the pelvis feel higher, one side lower? Is there any kind of rotation? Remember that relates to what you can feel in the feet. And then coming to the sides of your waist. So if one hip feels higher, does that mean that you've got a shorter waist on that side? Or maybe it relates to the rib cage. Maybe the rib cage on that side is shorter. So it's all just self-inquiry. Noticing the length and weight of both arms. Does one arm feel longer, one arm shorter? And if one arm feels shorter, is that because that shoulder's higher? What's happening in your skull? Bring yourself back to the wall for a moment. Quick check-in against the wall. Knowing that when we come to the wall and we're using the wall for feedback, it immediately starts to highlight any issues with your alignment. So remember, the feet are parallel, hip distance apart. Your heels will be an inch or so away from the wall. Just check and make sure that both feet are the same distance away from the wall. And just see if you can stand here relaxed. So stood here relaxed. Has anything changed in the weight of your feet with the wall behind you? It might not. Has anything changed in the way that you hold your knees? So now that you're trying to meet the wall, have you found that maybe one leg, one knee is hyperextended in an effort to meet the wall? How does your pelvis meet the wall left and right? What's the distance between the sides of your waist and the wall? How does each shoulder blade meet the wall? If you bring your shoulders to the wall, does that mean that you're arching the low back? How does that feel? We're not going to stay here, I just need you to notice. Length and weight of each arm when you're at the wall. Can you bring your skull to the wall? Doesn't matter if not, but if you can you bring it to the wall, and rather than have your chin tilt backwards, can you bring your chin down towards your chest? Then when you feel ready, move away from the wall. So the second part of pelvic clocks in standing, 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock movements, that's a hip hike and a hip drop. Starting away from the wall, just check in with your feet, make sure that your feet are hip distance apart, that the feet are level, parallel, and your toes are pointing forwards. When you feel ready, I'd like you to bend whichever knee feels good for you, and notice how this allows the opposite hip to hike. So the hip of the straight leg is going to move up. And can you allow the arm on this side to drop down? And then can you switch sides? So I'd like you to think about trying to keep this movement within a tube. So the hips are not swaying out to the side. So we're not doing this. It's a straight up and down movement. The side of the waist for the straight leg will shorten. So you're creating length down one side of your waist, shortening the other. Feels fairly easy, right? We can all do this. So now I'd like you to just see if you're being really honest with yourself. Are you really taking the weight into the standing leg? So this leg that's straight, if you really had to, could you take the bent knee foot from the floor? Don't need you to do that, but I just want you to be really honest about it. And notice the difference side to side. So does one leg feel really strong and like it could take the weight, but the other leg maybe not so? And if one leg doesn't feel as strong as the other, come to the strong leg. Notice what's happening with the structure in that leg. What's happening in the whole of your body to allow you to be able to take the weight through this leg. And then what's not happening on the other side, so you can have a play with it. Is it maybe that your bum is in a different position? Is your pelvis in a different place? Is your rib cage in a different place? So what's stopping you? And then when you've had a little bit of a play with that, we're going to move back to the wall. So coming back to the wall. Check in, make sure that your feet are still parallel. Hip distance apart, toes pointing forwards. Remembering that the wall brings us into alignment. So I'd like you to try and keep your pelvis and your rib cage stacked. Don't worry too much about the head for now. But your bum will be in contact with the wall and the backs of your shoulders hopefully lightly touching the wall. Remember, no side to side movement. This is a straight up and down movement. And when you feel ready, bending whichever knee feels good for you, taking the weight into the opposite side. So the bum of the straight leg, those glutes should be feeling like they're switching on, and that side of your pelvis will be slightly more in contact with the wall than the other. How does this feel at the wall? Is it harder here? Can you use the wall to try and understand what's happening side to side? So using the wall can be a really useful tool. If you find it difficult on one side, just like before, check in. See which parts of your body touch the wall on the side that feels good. And then see what's not happening on the other side. So what's not touching the wall? Is it that your rib cage is maybe rotated forwards? Is it that something's moved off to the side? So remembering that this is all an exploration into your own mobility, finding out where your joints have forgotten to go and putting those movements back. So having a play with this over the next couple of days, and then over the weekend, we'll put the whole movement together.